Hi everybody, and welcome to this video which is entitled 10 ways in which leadership will impact your dental practice and how to go about measuring them. It's split into two sections. The first section is around 4 specific hard endpoints where I think leadership really impacts. The second section is around softer endpoints and observable behaviors. So 6 observable behaviors that you will see as an impact of leadership. So let's get going. So in terms of hard endpoints, the first one for me is employee engagement levels. So the engagement levels of all team members in your dental practice. So associates, receptionists, nurses, TCOs, everybody, the overall engagement levels of those people. And this can be measured actually relatively simply. You can create a regular employee engagement survey. You don't have to be mega sophisticated about it. It can be really simple. It can have 4 to 5 questions. And actually there's one specific question that's quite well recognized from an employee engagement perspective, and that is the eNPS score. So to consistently measure this gives you a track, allows you to track how that is progressing. Perhaps do it every 6 months or so, and it will give you an indicator of how your employee engagement levels are. And this is so important. A number of times I've spoken to practice leaders and they say, well, the average person just doesn't care, the average nurse just doesn't care, the average receptionist just doesn't care. And actually, I disagree with that. I think that's because the leader hasn't created the environment so that they do care. And how do you go about doing that? So if you do that effectively, that to me is great leadership. And so this is a great indicator of the leadership levels within your organization, the impact it will have, which will ultimately have a significant impact on your dental practice. So employee engagement levels, hard endpoint number 1. Second hard endpoint is employee staff turnover, and that should include associates, dentists, everybody. So what are the levels of people leaving in your dental practice? Measure it on an ongoing rolling 12-month basis and just see how that is tracking. It's not that you don't want any people leaving, because sometimes a little bit of turnover is good because it creates new, fresh impetus. But we want to keep it to an absolute minimum because the impact on the business is so significant. And so we want to track that. Now track it consistently, monthly, on a rolling 12-month basis, and make sure you don't make excuses for why people have left. You might want to categorize it into what they call regrettable losses or non-regrettable losses. But don't make excuses. It's easy to make excuses for why people have left. We just need to see the stats and then see about the impact and see what's happening. Okay, so staff turnover levels, second endpoint. The third endpoint I would look at is sickness levels. If people are not engaged, they don't care, they're not bothered, then they're much more likely to pull a sickie. And yes, there will be consistent levels of actual sickness, but again, depending on how they're being treated, the actual sickness levels are likely to be either lower or higher, depending on how well people are being treated. So it's an overall really good indicator for me of the levels of leadership that are taking place. So measure that on a consistent monthly basis. How many days are people having off sick versus the total days that people are working? So looking at full-time equivalent. So if someone's part-time, let's say 2.5 days a week, and that's 0.5 of a full-time equivalent, and working out how many days off of that overall amount that people are meant to be working, have people having off sick, and track this consistently. So employee sickness levels. And then the fourth one that I think you can measure is about making the ability to make change happen. And that's binary. Have you been able to make that change happen? Something you are clearly trying to do, were you able to make that change happen? Part of that is defining clearly what you want that change to be. And then you can say, did you make it happen or not? So that's another good way of actually measuring the impact of leadership, because great leadership makes change happen. Okay, so those are the four, I would say, hard endpoints that I think you can really measure closely and accurately. The key to these hard endpoints is to be really consistent in how you measure, and then to consistently look at them all the time. It's not necessarily about the measure itself and the score itself, but it's about how that's tracking. Are you seeing progress against those measures? Right, so those are the four hard endpoints. Hope that's clear. Right, second section now is more about observable behaviours. So what would be the observable behaviours that leadership will really impact? The first one of these observable behaviours is about high levels of positive energy. So have you got lots of people with high levels of positive energy? If there's great leadership, this is what you will see. That people are willing to overcome barriers. When things happen, they'll find a way around it. They'll proactively go out and do stuff. So they won't just be reactive, they'll be working towards the overall place that the practice is heading. So this kind of proactive, positive, high energy, if you're seeing lots of that, that's a great indicator of great leadership. The second one is about people going above and beyond. Will people really go above and beyond? Are you seeing examples of people going above and beyond what is just their job, what they are just meant to be doing? But they're really going above and beyond. Someone perhaps staying late to look up the practice, staying late to look after a patient who's not in a great place. What behaviours are you noticing and seeing of people going above and beyond? That is where people are really committed to what the practice is offering, and so ultimately, and trying to get to, so ultimately that's an indicator of great leadership. So people going above and beyond. Effective conflict. This is always an interesting one, but actually we want to have conflict because it's impossible for everybody to agree on everything. And actually if they do, then the chances are you've got some blind spots because some people are not taking opposing views. So then the question is, can you have effective conflict, meaning where it's out in the open, where it's not shoved under the carpet, where there are adult conversations going on between people and debate happening around things that you perhaps don't agree on. So actually having good, effective conflict, I think, is a great indicator of great leadership. So that's a second observable behaviour, third observable behaviour, which is effective conflict. Clarity about what's important. Do people really know what the practice stands for? What are the values of the practice? What are the things that people know must be upheld no matter what? What are the priorities for the practice? So clarity around what is important. If you see and people know and are clear on what's most important, this to me is an impact of great leadership. High levels of trust. High levels of trust is not just about saying, I know this person will do that or do this. It's actually about this thing called vulnerability. That people are willing to admit mistakes, they're willing to speak up, they're willing to challenge, they can be themselves, and that you're seeing that happen within the practice. These, again, is a great example of fantastic leadership. And then lastly, improve decision making. Are you making better decisions? Are you being clear, decisive, and are you improving your level of success about choosing the right things and doing the right decisions? So it will ultimately, great leadership will mean improved decision making. All right, so overall, these are the 10 ways in which leadership will impact your dental practice. And they are so significant that will have a massive impact on the overall results of your dental practice. I hope that's given you some ideas as to how to go about measuring them. And that will ultimately enable you to improve your own leadership. Thanks for listening, or thanks for watching. Bye for now.